So it might sound like an arrogant or selfish thing to spend 45 minutes, I will do less by the way, because we have a little bit of lag in the schedule, to talk about my employer. But to me, at this point, that does make sense. And the reason for that is threefold. There's a lot of change happening within Microsoft. So some of these changes you already have seen, probably, or heard of. But there's a lot more going on internally, and we like to take opportunities to talk about this, to talk about how we are changing, and what the effect basically is on companies like nopCommerce, the communities like you guys, and the companies you are working for. So that's basically the thing I want to talk to today about. And if you look at what Microsoft has been saying the last couple of years, so this is our mission statement. I assume everybody heard this before. If not, this is really something that's very important to us. This basically determines what we do product-wise, what we do in terms of how we handle with our partners and customers. And a lot of the change that we are going through is basically triggered with this mission statement Satya Nadella initiated. So again, there's a big impact on how we approach customers. There's a completely new way how we address audiences. So in this case today, this feels like home because, if I understood correctly, this is mostly a Microsoft-oriented audience, and if not, that's also great because that's the new audience we want to target. And today I will explain why we like to also target these new types of audience, where previously we never engaged with them because we thought it didn't make sense. Well, the opposite is true, as we learned. Another reason to talk about Microsoft today is that there's a lot of new technology which opens new opportunities. So we really like to take these kinds of opportunities to talk about it, because there might be stuff among the slides which are new to you, and we would really like to get everybody on the same page in terms of what's today possible and what will be coming in tomorrow. So that will be my goals for the session. I tuned it a little bit towards retail and commerce. I basically work in all verticals with the team I work for, which is called the Developer Experience Team within Microsoft. Same team as Clemens, for those who have seen this session. And for Microsoft, we are actually getting used to a new role called the underdog. So we used to be a leader in many segments. There are a couple of new, very important segments where we are not the leader. And that's basically a big shift for us. It really meant that we had to do things differently. But it's quite interesting, and it's quite fun actually to be part of an underdog company instead of only a leader. So as you know, Windows 10 has been released for a couple of years now. It's been very successful. Currently there are 400 million Windows 10 devices, active devices, which means every month they should have been online once, and then they count for this metric. So it probably will be even more. But this was quite successful. It even was more successful than we anticipated. But again, if we look around us, if you see what was happening in the market, you all know that, for example, our mobile endeavor, we could call it, has gone through a different life cycle. This basically is one of the most recent pictures I saw of the mobile market, and how things have changed. And this basically also drives the changes within Microsoft. And we clearly saw that with Windows Phone, we need to rethink our initiative. Currently, we still have mobile, but that's more oriented to enterprises, because they have a lot of requirements in terms of management and security. But I think the picture speaks for itself. I guess the only one, another fact we see is that the mobile market is trying to keep up, but it seems to be turning old in terms of that mobile devices are not disruptive anymore. The new models are basically the same as the oldest one. So we see a maturity level in this market, and then always the questions arise, what's next? What type of device will replace the mobile phones in our pockets? That's of course something which Microsoft are very interested in to find out, and maybe to create something which will determine the future. So that's basically what we are doing at this point in time. What's very important for Microsoft is our cloud, Microsoft Azure. Who is not familiar with Microsoft Azure in terms of doesn't know what it is? Okay, I think we have done some work on that regard because there are no hands. This is for us a big bet. The whole company depends on the success of Azure. We see that in terms of investment. So on the left bottom side, you see that we already have 36 regions active, and this keeps on growing. This keeps on growing so fast that many of the slides I have are not up to date on this mark. Because every week, every month, we have announcements of expanding existing regions, existing data centers, and completely new regions. So for example, the ones in France, which are not on this slide even, have recently been announced. The new ones in Germany are coming, which are quite interesting, especially for storing data which is not in our hands. So that's a very interesting development in the European region as well. And if you look at one of those regions, we've just recently actually started showing how they look like. Normally it was a bit disclosed, we never knew where they were. So here you see a couple of examples of one region, how big it is. And that's really massive, and those things will keep growing. The ones we have are already too small. We actually have issues with a couple of regions that are too many customers coming. We need to expand further, and we need to expand faster. And all this new technology shown here in the picture is basically not only built to give us efficient data centers, but also be able to grow faster. It needs to be very simple to extend these things. So it's quite a big thing for us. I'm not sure if somebody could turn off the lights to make the slides a little bit more visible, if that's possible. I don't want to stand in the dark. I think that's more visible. Anyway, looking at e-commerce, we know that in e-commerce and retail, for many years it's been a challenge to keep up. A lot of things are changing. Customers are changing what they expect from your solution, and that's something we are also sensitive of. So that's also the reason why we want to share how we have been changing, how that went with us, and maybe you are triggered to share that with us as well, in terms of, okay, what do we need tomorrow to keep up, what do we need tomorrow to be more productive and more profitable. So we need that feedback. So if you look, for example, at IoT, the Internet of Things, these are just a couple of consumer-oriented products we have scanned and collaborated with. And they basically give insights in a new way when customers look at products. Customers tend to expect new things from them. For example, internet connectivity. That's one of the aspects of the Internet of Things. And this basically gives us a new dialogue with customers. And we try to support with our cloud a platform to build these kind of solutions, to be able to ingest all this data and to be able to handle that data. I'll come back to that a little bit later. So we see mixed results with IoT. Some of the stuff is really, well, foolish, fun stuff coming from the maker community, like this hand-built consumer device based on a Raspberry Pi. But we also see very interesting things and even life-saving things within healthcare. And a nice example, I think, is one of my colleagues in the US who turned blind at the age of 7. He was able to use our Azure services, the cognitive services we have in Azure, to be able to walk around. He's completely blind, but he has his glasses on, and he's able to make pictures. So whenever he hears something which might be an alarming thing for him, something dangerous or something he's interested in, he's able to just click a button. The picture will go to the cloud via his phone, and there will be cognitive services running in Azure, which tell him via voice, via Cortana, what actually is happening around him. So he's able to detect things like what's mentioned here. But it even goes further. He's able to sit with people which are having discussions, and he's able to figure out, okay, is there a woman on my left side? How old is a person opposite of me? He can even be able to detect whether it's a Microsoft employee and do some face recognition, that kind of stuff. And this only, of course, is possible with a big back end which is supporting these services. So I think it's a very interesting case in that sense. And we all know it's quite difficult to get the love of a customer, which means we first have to offer them a lot of nice services and beneficials. And only then they will be able to return this love and be more bound to us. That's something we always put a lot of effort in at Microsoft. And I think we have that in common. If I look at this audience, we try to do the same things. And we think technology can be an enabler for this. I'll show a couple of examples where we think the consumer can be treated with a completely new experience in terms of commerce. And we are trying to build a lot of services to support it for you as well. And these are very important pillars, so to speak. So these goals we focus on, the products we build are focused on these pillars. It's about transforming the products, to modernize them, and to do stuff like I showed you before with them. Optimizing your operations. I mean, you all know that that's a very big thing where you can save some money at the beginning to be able to support opportunities and innovations at the end. And that's basically what it all boils down to, actually, to be able to change. And empowering employees, of course, is important. And the end result should be, you should be able to engage more with your customers. So trust is a very important thing, and we know from experience that trust can only come from security and being aware of privacy aspects. And this is a dialogue we have with basically all our customers and even with the governance of where the customers come from. Currently we have like 80 lawsuits against the US government because we think that the data you put in our cloud is yours and there's no exception to that. That's what we plan to achieve. We recently won one of those lawsuits, which was a big opening for us to be able to do even more with that regard. But still, this is an ongoing discussion. This is an ongoing thing where technology needs to evolve, where legislation needs to evolve. We are working very closely. And privacy, of course, is a very important thing that's an ongoing discussion as well, especially for consumers, which tend to be very sensitive to that in some cases and totally not sensitive to that in other cases. So if you look at data privacy, actually there are a lot of things coming towards us, especially for those who are operating in the European Union. The GDPR is coming. Does anybody know about the GDPR? Some couple of hands. So this is a thing coming towards us, which means that EU residents will be able to claim that they need a conscious consent. When you store their data, they need to be aware of that and they need to give you approval. So that's already something we have without the cookie law and that kind of stuff. But this will be a new thing. This will be a bigger thing, something we all need to be aware of. People also will have the right to erase data, and I can assume that not all systems, I'm not sure exactly what that would be in the case of nopCommerce, but not all systems are able to remove fully the data. And that's basically what this law is saying. Transportability, another thing. So EU residents should be able to say to a company, I want to move your data to another partner, fix it for me, give me that opportunity, and on a technical level that can be a big issue. I mean, try to think of your own solution, whether that's possible in all cases. A consumer asking you to remove the data and transport it, either doing a download or whatever, that's still something we have to figure out. And this will be effective May 25th, 2018, so that's quite close by, I would say. And if you look at the politicians, I included ex-politicians because that's on the map as well, you see a lot of diversity of opinions. So there's one side saying, okay, we have to really put in more data privacy regulations. Other companies, like the Netherlands, as well, we're saying, okay, let's back down a little bit on this. I think that's an interesting figure stating that we are not yet near to consensus on a European level, let alone on a worldwide level. If you look at Microsoft, we used to be regarded as the predator in the market. That completely changed with the new CEO, Satya Nadella. We at least try to be regarded as a team player, as a very nice and pleasant team player. I was not sure if the monkey is killing the dog actually, because it was quite scary. So I switched to this. It's not just
Microsoft is a dog or a monkey?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's up to you to decide, I understand. So open source is very important for us. There are a couple of reasons for this. Being nice means playing together with everybody on the field. That's one thing. Another thing is, if you look at Azure, OSS is very important. We need bigger communities to grow Azure, so we can't only look at our own community, the .NET developers, so we need to scale up that as well. The audience needs to be scaled up, and supporting OSS in Azure is a very big and important thing for us to grow. Linux, for example, I'm not sure if you know, but almost 30% of all the VMs, the virtual machines running in our cloud, are Linux machines. And if you look at how this progresses, we expect to quite soon be around 50-50, and even at the end it might be the case that there are more Linux machines running in Azure than Windows machines. An interesting development, but this also, I guess, explains why we think Linux is very important. There's a commercial reason, and there's like a moral reason for that. And a surprising thing for me actually is the fact that we announced to be supporting SQL Server on Linux. SQL Server is, let's say, number 3 in the world in terms of the most popular and most used database. So first I thought, this is strange, why are we doing this? But it totally makes sense, because Linux is basically the most popular server operating system in the world. And it makes commercial sense to combine the two. So this is coming quite soon, actually. We've been working on this for quite a while. And in terms of collaborating with communities, in terms of releasing code on GitHub, working with communities on GitHub, working with nopCommerce community as well, that's very important for us, because we really learned this. We used to be very slow in terms of updating new platforms, in terms of supporting SDKs for some new type of device or some new language, for example. And since we are using and collaborating with the communities, we tend to accelerate a lot. An example of this is in the IT field, which I'm very active in. We really gained a lot of speed by working with communities that support SDKs for many types of devices to be able to ingest data in the cloud. So Azure is a big thing. As I mentioned, this is the center. There's a lot of stuff in there. We're not going to go through it, of course, today. A couple of things I would like to note in terms of what's going on. So this is a chart of just the services we added in the last weeks, months, quite a short period. A lot of stuff has been added. Some of these are very big, like new data centers in Germany, UK, and France. Some of them are really important stuff which enables new markets, new audiences. Just to give you an insight on how fast we are progressing in Azure. We're still in the early stages of this whole thing. So that's quite interesting to see where we end up. In terms of compliance, I guess for commerce, compliance is always a big thing. We put a lot of investments in making sure that whatever compliance makes sense, we will have it in Azure. And this is quite expensive. If you have to do this yourself, you will spend a lot of money on paying PricewaterhouseCoopers consultant, for example, to come over to the office to do the checks, whether we do what we claim we are doing. And this is the result of a big investment on that regard. In terms of security, so there are still many people anxious for the cloud, but there are actually many reasons to consider the cloud if it's about privacy and security. So there's a team of hundreds of people within Redmond which monitor the whole cloud worldwide, and they are actively monitoring threats. And most of them are coming actually from Russia and China. But it's interesting to see that what they try to do is basically catch attacks before they hit your website, before they hit your services. It's very advanced, and it's actually a cyber war. These people regard them as soldiers trying to fight a big thing here. It's very complex, and actually we try to extend this. So a new service within Azure is called the Security Center, where you're able to enable it, and we will scan your environment, with your permission of course, and give you some insights in where you have made mistakes in terms of configuring security. We offer all the security measurements, but not all of them are on by default because they might cost more. But we can make you aware of the fact that if you have some gaps somewhere, they might make sense in terms of cost, but you might not even be aware of them. So this gives you an opportunity to let us help you in terms of security. Another important and actually quite interesting thing is how we see the world of computing progress. So we started with the mainframes many years ago. I was not born at that time, but I can remember that anyway. Then we switched to servers, and servers got complex quite fast. So this is a picture of the server part, which obviously went too complex. So we needed a way to simplify this. And this is also a reason why virtualization came upon us, where we were able to cram more machines in fewer physical machines. And basically this was building the steps up to the cloud. Without having virtualization, we wouldn't have a cloud, of course. But there's a lot of stuff coming next. So currently, I guess many of you are aware of the containerization that's going on. It's very popular and very important. What it basically boils down to is that VMs are still expensive. They might be virtual, but still they are quite big things in terms of size and how much CPU cycles have to be spent on them. So with containerization, you're basically able to share the resources of a host operating system and be able to run more stuff on a VM and run more stuff on the dollars we put in there. Interesting development, but there's on another level another interesting development, and that's on the side of microservices. I guess for many developers in the audience, they already heard this term. So what we did, we built Azure itself on microservices, and then we released the source code of that to the public, and that's called Azure Service Fabric. So it's not a new thing, it's something we have been building on since 2007, 8-ish, and this is really tested and hardened in practice. And basically what it means is, normally we were thinking of deploying our software in VMs, or something that resembles a VM, and then we have to think about how we're going to update the VM. We have to think in terms of how should we scale this out. What we can do with microservices is basically just spin up a pool of machines and have a software layer handle the whole thing. We only give it software, and then we say to the microservices solution, to Service Fabric, just make sure that it runs. Spread it all over the place to make sure that if something fails, not my whole website is down, or the whole backend is down. And make sure that if I give you an update, you're able to handle that. I put it on those notes exactly how I want you to put it. For example, to use update domains. So we give a small portion, the new version, see if it works, and then give everybody the new version. That's something you can do automatically with Azure Service Center. A very important thing we expect. Something people often are not aware of, if you will run something in Azure in one region, you're still at risk. We have service level agreements, but if something goes mad in the data center, which happens every now and then, you still can have the fact that your website is down and your solution in the backend is down. So we also offer service, and this is something all the public cloud providers offer, to be able to use multi-region deployments for fallback scenarios. Or in your case, if you have a worldwide shop, then you're able to put your resources in multiple regions and have basically one website being present on the whole world with the lowest latency. A lot of services support you doing this. And one of the newest things is serverless, very new term, it's becoming a hyper actually, which basically means, wouldn't it be nice if you were just able to give the cloud code and run it, not even think about setting up nodes or a cluster or a VM or hardware by any means, just give it code. And that's what Azure Functions is able to do. So on our portal website, you can just enter in some code or some logic, for example, logic that reacts on a file coming in or an HTTP request. You put the code in and you define what should be the output, so it could be a message on a queue or a message to a nopCommerce API, as you have seen in the last session, and you basically say, run this, or do it on a scheduled basis or whatever. So this is quite powerful because you don't think in terms of VMs or hosting plans or whatever. This just works and you pay by the clock cycle, more or less, and by bandwidth. So this will be a model we think in the future everything will be based on a similar model. Database calls should be based on this model. You just pay what you use on a very low level. So this is quite interesting. And in terms of serverless, we have a couple of additional services which also belong to this bucket. For example, Azure Logic Apps. Anybody familiar with Azure Logic Apps? So basically, we had a lot of requests in the past. How can we make business logic simple? How can we draw it up like this graphical format and make it run? We've had a lot of products which try to do it. Finally, with the cloud, we are able to do this in an online fashion, meaning you can draw these procedures, these business flows, where you have incoming data and you can send it over to whatever you want. So you have connectors to things like Slack, email, Dynamics, nopCommerce could be part of that as well. So you can set up your custom APIs and basically make those part of a business flow. And this can run on a very big scale in Azure. And again, you're not thinking of how do I deploy this, you just define it and we will make sure that it keeps on running. We even put an extra layer on top of that called Microsoft Flow. And for those who are familiar with the site ifthisthenThat.com, which I think is brilliant, this is a similar version. It's a little bit more advanced in terms that you still can do the branching. You have more decision flow options here. But it's basically the same thing, very lightweight for business users, for non-technical people to set up flows as well. And we support iOS and Android by first, and eventually Windows Mobile will become it. So I think that's an interesting development as well. Yeah, so data, for us, data is the new gold. For many companies, data is the new gold. If you are able to collect a lot of data and are able to handle and make intelligence out of data, you really struck gold. Make no mistake on that. So we try to offer you a lot of services to be able to ingest a lot of data, to do something with the data, to turn it into intelligence. And that's basically what Cortana Intelligence Suite is all about. It's a whole bunch of services to be able to go through this phase, to turn raw materials into gold, actually, because that can be gold. For example, Rolls-Royce is a company which is able to save $250,000 per plane per year in terms of being more efficient in downtime, in terms of being able to, with machine learning, predict when something needs to be replaced before it goes bad. So this is quite important, and there are many cases where a lot of money can be saved by applying this technology. There's a lot of technology involved, by the way, a lot of building components. So it's a big thing. It's not something you set up in a week and then you're good to go. You need a lot of knowledge, maybe some new roles in your organization as well. Data scientist is one of the more popular terms, because it depends, if you put that on your title, your salary raises. It's actually been studied, and that was the result of that study. So this is our machine learning studio. I just want to show it because of its simplicity. It looks very simple. So what you do is basically you pull in data. You can pull out a couple of machine learning algorithms, classification algorithms, neural networks, it's all in there. And it looks very simple to set it up, but make no mistake, you have to know all about your data. You really have to understand your data and have a lot of it in terms of historical data before you can even think of doing machine learning and predicting stuff. So it's very easy on the top level, where we offer tools like this to be able to do it. We offer a lot of services to be able to do petabytes of data, to handle petabytes of data. But the act of actually deciding which algorithm you should use, that's a different story. We try to help partners with this. So if that's something you're looking into, contact us and we'll make sure that we have a discussion on that as well. In terms of output, Power BI, who's familiar with Power BI? Some more hands there. It's been very popular. This is really going through a roller coaster ride. It's quite new. So what it is basically a new way to visualize data. It's a data visualization tool, not more than that, but it's quite powerful in that regard. You can pull in data sources and very easily construct dashboards and reports like this. And you're able to share this within your organization, for example. It's very powerful. There's natural language options, so you can just state a question in the English language and it will figure out which SQL statement should be extracted from that. We see a lot of traction for Power BI, and it's even possible now to embed it in existing systems. Previously this was quite a hassle, but you can, in this case it's a sample of a website which was able to embed these dashboards in your application. So looking at multiple platforms, if you look at mobile, we acquired Xamarin. Who's familiar with Xamarin? That's great. So I go very quickly through this one. It's all about sharing code. It's all about enabling .NET C# developers to build for multiple platforms, but most of you already know that, looking at the amount of hands. So what we focus on, and with me, I'm basically the Xamarin team, is Xamarin Forms, which I think is the most interesting option you have. So with Xamarin Forms, you're able not only to share your client backend code, but you're also able to share the UI code. Initially, this was like a trial thing. It was meant to build demo applications, very simple, not too fancy. Some performance issues were actually in there. But this has totally changed. So Xamarin, or Microsoft in this case, because we bought it, the goal is really to make this a fully fledged first citizen type of thing, to be able to write the UI code as well once, and then be able to render it on all platforms. So make no mistake, this will be a very big investment to finalize this thing, because it had a lot of issues with performance. So let's talk a little bit about disruption. I think we have seen a couple of nice examples recently. So Pokemon Go, I think, is a nice example of a very stupid thing. That's my opinion, of course. But if you look at how it was implemented, it was really quite rubbish. But it really was disruptive. So for Nintendo, this stupid little app gained them a market value of $7.5 billion. So that was added on top of what they had just because of this funny little thing. I think that's a very good example of being disruptive. And I think disrupting can be done on multiple levels. So for example, with user interaction, that's something that we as Microsoft try to disrupt. And we can think of this as disrupting consumer interaction as well. So what am I talking about here? So there's the Microsoft Bot Framework, which is basically part of a new endeavor we set up, where we want to make sure that applications do not only need to live in a mobile phone or on a desktop. So what you're able to do with the bot framework is build like a chatbot, which is not something new, of course. But what we try to support is to be able to put this on many platforms. So for example, you have Slack, you have Skype, you have email, many more of those. What you can do with the bot framework is build your bot and then automatically provision it for all those platforms. The big difference is that your consumers, your clients, don't need to install something. They don't need to go to an app, but they can use Skype, they can use their WhatsApp environment. So there's nothing a client needs to do to offer you the opportunity to get in contact with them. And the other way is also true. The clients can contact you without you having the burden to have a call center. So simple questions can be answered through bots. And this is quite an interesting thing because bots can also connect other bots and then they can have a whole dialogue. So for example, if you book a flight, there could be the bot connecting to a hotel bot, which is able to schedule an hotel. And the whole dialogue can be automatically provisioned. The only thing you have to say is, okay, just book the room, book the car, whatever. That's quite an interesting thing we will see developing in the near future. Just for kicks, let's look at a little demo. We'll have some demos. So there's a website for the bot framework. There's a bot directory. There you will see tens and hundreds of examples of bots. One of the, I guess, the more funny ones is the Murphy bot. And what you see here is, this is what I mentioned earlier, this bot is on this website. So it's just a simple chat thing on this website. But you can automatically enable it for these platforms, or multiple. You can build your own platforms as well. So for example, that could be like a nopCommerce module for chat feedback, like the buttons on the right button in the web shops. And this is quite simple. So because of the fact that Skype was enabled for this bot, I can go to Skype. Let's see if I can just do this. And we have Murphy here active. So I can just add it as a contact, and from that point onwards, I can ask Murphy or whatever web shop has built the bot. It's a very simple way to interact with an existing application. And you can even make calls towards the customers. If you have a very interesting advertisement, for example, you can ping them through this, or through Slack or whatever you want to choose. So to give you an example, there's another one called Your Face. And basically what it's, when I say hi, I'm not here to chat, it says, can everybody see it in the back? I don't think so. My Zoom tool is not working. So Murphy doesn't want to talk with me. The only thing he wants is pictures. He wants to look at pictures and say something about them. So if I pick a picture, for example, me, it starts to analyze it, tries to recognize and say something interesting or uninteresting about me. Yeah, here it's coming. I will keep this photo for 10 minutes and I'll use it whenever you
Just
ask.
use the Facebook.
You should use another user, your face, not Murphy. You posted to Murphy.
Yeah, that was the whole idea. So I posted this to Murphy and it will give a reaction on it. So when I do another picture, this is what I wanted to show in this case. So for example, Ariana's face. I was sending this to the Your Face. Oh, sorry. No, you're right. I missed it. My fault. Sorry. Again. So when I put this picture in here, it will say something moody, because it's a moody bot in this case. But the interesting thing is if I put in somebody more famous than me, for example, like Ariana Grande, it will discover that it's Ariana Grande, so that's not a very big thing because there are lots of pictures of Ariana. So the machine learning on the backside of this is of course able to detect that this is Ariana. But it's also able to predict the age. And I looked it up. Ariana is 23 years old, so I think it's a very solid estimate that it gives. And another important or quite cool thing is if I put in totally another picture, which is not related to faces, the outcome is quite interesting. So this is even a car which is upside down. Just somebody had too much time on his hands, so they built an upside down car. And still it's able to detect the fact that it's a car. So I think that's quite advanced, and that's something you don't have to build yourself. We have APIs called the cognitive services, which I mentioned earlier on. And this is very simple to build. A couple of lines of code to build this whole app, actually. I think that's a very powerful framework. We will be doing a lot of this ourselves with our services. And it's open for everybody to use and expand. And to complete this session with another disruptive thing, at least we see and got feedback this is quite disruptive. I would like to talk a little bit about the HoloLens. Who had the opportunity to put a HoloLens on their head so far? Okay, it's still quite rare. There are around 100 HoloLenses in the Netherlands. So our partners were able to acquire them. Recently we announced that the HoloLens is available in a couple of new countries as well. The UK is part of that, France, Germany, unfortunately not the Netherlands, which is quite interesting. It actually means that I'm still not allowed to show the physical HoloLens to you, because it's not in this market, so we are limited at Microsoft to be able to talk and showcase. We are allowed to talk it in slides, so that's what I want to do for a few minutes. For those who are not aware of it, this is really a very advanced device, but it's not ours alone. So the specifications for building a HoloLens are public. People can build their own version. Maybe they have some ideas how to change this in a different kind of device, or maybe fine-tune it and optimize it. So that's, this is not something we will protect. This is something we will give to the community. And the reason for that is that we basically don't look at the HoloLens as a whole ecosystem. It's part of Windows 10. It's part of our new initiative called Windows Holographic. And we basically would like to see holographic devices all over the place coming from many partners. So that's the whole deal. So what's the interesting thing about it in terms of technology? The most important difference with all the other virtual reality devices is that this thing is untethered, meaning you just put it on your head and it's good to go. There's no machines needing to be attached to it. And that's a big differentiator. I think for those who own an Oculus Rift, for example, they know how much money they had to spend to be able to enjoy a VR experience. And there are even VR experiences which needs to set up a whole room with sensors. This is completely untethered. I did not believe it myself, so recently I was able to play around with it for like an hour. And it's really amazing. So the videos you might have seen on our showcases and keynote sessions, they are actually true. I have no other way to explain it. There is no way to explain it. You need to experience it yourself. So if you know somebody who has it, or a partner which has it, and soon we will be able to show it to you when you come to our office as well. It's an experience, to be honest. And the reason it's an experience and is advanced is this part. So there are a lot of sensors. The whole movement thing is an important thing. To be able to render a hologram on this table depends on the fact that when I move, it stays there. That really works. That's really accurate. It's very fast. And that's because of these sensors. So it's not actually based on measuring distances, a couple of distance sensors, but also very depending on visual feedback. So that's a lot of processing. The cameras are actually working to find out in which direction I move. And that means we need a lot of processing. And that's why we needed a new type of CPU called the HPU, the holographic processing unit. I'll come back to that a little bit later on. And this is the screen. So there are very small displays embedded in the screen, which is being projected from the upside. So this is where the projection basically starts. And this will render a 3D stereoscopic image of a hologram. And again, you have to see it with your own eyes to be able to believe the quality, to believe the impact it has, and to believe the applications that this can have. We have many partners who really eager to start with this. Serious stuff, fun stuff, especially in education. This has a lot of potential. In healthcare, a lot of potential. We already have those cases. So this is quite interesting. And this one is the holographic processing unit. Basically, it's just a pumped-up smartphone. So it's limited. It won't run any game, for example, but it's very powerful, and it still is an untethered thing, which is very important to support the scenarios. And the last one was about sound. Sound is a very important aspect. The challenge is this technology is cool, but for developers, this is really new stuff. Not many developers are able to grasp the complexity of building a holographic solution. It's about 3D. I'm not sure if everybody in the room had experience with 3D environments. If you want to use the HoloLens in the right way, you need to be able to build something in the third dimension. So that's something we have to learn as well. We teamed up with the guys from Unity 3D, which is a very popular tool, to build 3D solutions. But it's a new thing. It's a new thing for us developers. But I think a very nice one to work with. We call it mixed reality because it's not only augmenting stuff, like the Nintendo app I discussed earlier, and it's not only virtual reality. It's really something that is, you still see the environment around you, but you're able to augment it and have more interaction with it than simply augmenting the stuff. And it's, as I mentioned, I didn't mention it actually, it's available currently, so you can buy it even if you're localized in the Netherlands. You only need to ship it to a German address, for example. But it's much more reachable now. And it's quite cheap if you look at the technology, isn't it? So this is really meant for enterprises. This is by no means a consumer product. It's not something people at home have lying around, but it might come because we open it up. So maybe there's a day where everybody who's visiting a nopCommerce web shop is able to browse through the catalog with a hologram HoloLens on their head. And I think that would be an interesting thing to try to achieve in the future. So there is an example of a company which built kitchens, and basically they offer their customers to not only show in holograms what type of kitchen they would like, they're able to manipulate it just by hand, but they are also able to, with machine learning, detect the taste of the customer and give examples which are matched on the taste based on Instagram pictures, for example. And here you see a couple of examples of what the HoloLens could do for us. In the architectural space, it's also very popular, obviously, because visualization is a very important thing. But we also have customers which use this, for example, to build submarines or to build oil platforms, which are very complex things. It's not something easy to discuss on a blueprint, on a table. So they are looking at HoloLens applications to be able to achieve more. And just to close this down, I think this one is really nice, where we were able to do a holoportation, meaning that this girl is at home, this colleague of mine is away from home again, like we often do, but they are able to interact. So the girl is in the room over there, back at home, and this guy is basically watching his daughter is walking through the room he's standing in. So this takes quite an advanced setup, but HoloLens is basically enabling this. I think at the end it's quite fun to see that you can record this whole session, this whole meeting between him and his daughter, and you're able to scale it down to a table format. So imagine recording parts of your holiday, for example, and then be able to watch it back home in 3D. I think that's quite an interesting thing to see what the future has in store for us. Looking at the time, I'm going to go through the last bit more quickly. Blockchain, a very important thing at Microsoft. We are still on the early stages of discovering what it is, to be able to explain what it is to our customers or to ourselves, actually, to be honest. Is there anybody in the room already looking into blockchain technology? Yeah. I think for commerce, of course, it has a very big impact, not only because of the fact that it's supporting Bitcoins, but I think it will be a very big thing in the near future. Just to give you some idea on the impact, so it's not about trusting one party, it's all about trusting nobody and making sure that it still works, that you're still able to hand information from A to B without needing trust. That's the whole deal about this thing. So where we used to have a bank, which we needed to trust to make things work, we are able with the blockchain to trust nobody, because everybody has the transaction list on their own machine and everybody is doing the validation. I'm not going to go through the whole story, of course. But for us, this is a big thing. If you look at this slide, I know it's very small, but these are some applications, some very apparent applications of doing blockchains. Voting, I think, is a very interesting one. Being able, for musicians, for example, I like that one as well. So musicians who make a song, they often don't get paid. That's a really big challenge. So Spotify might be an example where artists do get paid, but wouldn't it be nice if you can release a song and be able to put a tag on it and make sure that everybody who's listening to the song, who puts it on a CD or whatever, is able to track down to the source who made the song, who earns the right to earn money from this work. And there are many examples on this slide which showcase how many fields this can be a very important and disruptive thing. So what we are trying to do as Microsoft is being able to offer you the development tools to get acquainted with this whole topic and to work on this. And of course, this is all part of Azure. So what we currently have is implementations and development environments for Ethereum, which is an implementation of building smart contracts with blockchains. So that's a way to build this kind of stuff. And for IoT, for example, it's also very important because we want to make sure that messages coming from devices are trackable to the source, which is a big issue, actually. Just to wrap it all up, I have a couple of slides on next-gen computing, because I think that's also very interesting to see what's going on, and now in the near future. We were already used to the central processing unit, of course, The GPU is a thing we have seen for many years, which is a specialized version, which is faster but more limited in terms of what it can do. We also have been active with field programmable gate arrays, which basically means that you have a CPU which you can configure how it works after it has been manufactured by software. So we use this internally in Azure. We will be using this internally in Azure to make our switches, our network infrastructure more fast by using these kinds of chips on that field. And they can be very fast. Can means you have to really build them and make sure that you do the right job there, but they have the potential to be even faster than GPUs. I mentioned the holographic processing unit as a new family member, but there's another one which I think is very interesting. This is really early stage, but I think it's really interesting. The neurosynaptic processors. So these are the first processors that are actually able to understand and learn. So this basically means that these chips resemble the brain. I think that's really interesting. So if you look at these kinds of processors, take a cockroach for example, which has 1 million neurons in its brain. A hamster has 90 million neurons in the brain. And people, it ranges a little bit between 50 billion and 100 billion. But elephants, which I think is very interesting, have 300 billion neurons in their brain. And we see currently the chips we have, the NSP chips, are between the 90 million and the 50 billion. So the chips that currently are available only reach like 100 million, but you can attach them together to build, let's say, a bigger brain. And we need these things. We need these things to be able to do more machine learning, because currently machine learning takes a lot of money and resources to be able to do, to really make machines more smarter and achieve our goals to be able to help you make your software and your solutions more smarter. We need this kind of technology as soon as possible. They don't evolve by themselves and they don't actually have an instinct. So at this point we shouldn't be afraid of them, but that's currently the case. So we'll see in the future that this will stay. So this is my last slide, the question, what will you think to be bringing in the future? I hope you will be able to come up with stuff we didn't think of and use our technology to implement it. And with that, I would like to thank you for sticking with us on a Friday afternoon. My name is Valery and I work for Microsoft.